Hi guys, my name is Sumi and welcome to my very first video where I'm going to show you guys how to implement WebSockets in your Express.js backend. So to get started, let's talk about what is a WebSocket and how is it different from something such as the HTTP protocol. For those of you who haven't used HTTP before, I'll give you an example to help you visualize how it works. Let's say you have a very simple UI for a login page with an email input, a password input, and a login button. And you also have some kind of backend server that validates all that information. What you would do is you put in your email, you put in your password, you click login. As soon as that loading icon shows up, what happens is a new connection is formed between your front end and your back end, and we use HTTP to send the email and the password and any other information needed to our back end from the client side. The backend then validates your password, sees it if it's correct based on whatever email you put in, sends an authentication token back, etc., etc. Doesn't matter. Afterwards, it closes the connection. So after all the logic is done in the login route, the connection is completely closed. So as we can see here, every single time we want to get something from our backend or our database, our client side makes a request, our backend sends a response back to the client side, connection is closed, and we do it over and over again. This is usually completely fine. HTTP is very widely used, but in some cases we can't really use HTTP. The reason for that is because of its nature of opening and closing every time. Let's say you're on Instagram. You want to text your friend, and you obviously want it to be in real time. If we were to use HTTP, what we would have to do is something called polling, where we would have to open and close a connection every 1 second or 5 seconds or 10 seconds and check for new messages constantly by opening those connections. So let's say for a span of 10 minutes you get no messages at all. Those connections are still being opened, and this is very inefficient, as you can imagine. So what we can do instead is use a WebSocket. So as we can see here, a WebSocket connection is opened only once, and the client side sends a request to create a WebSocket connection to the server, and the server sends back an acknowledgement, and they're now connected. This connection is completely persistent. It stays open until, let's say, you log out of Instagram or close the app. So the benefit of this is, now that we have a persistent connection, let's say we want to send a message. We would send this through WebSocket instead of HTTP, because whenever we send this through WebSocket, the message is received by the server, and the server then again uses WebSocket to send it to whoever the receiver is, in this case our friend. And if our friend wants to send a message, he sends it to the server using WebSocket, and the server sends it to us using WebSocket. So you can see no new connections are being formed. It's all through one singular persistent connection. This has other use cases as well. Let's say in real-time online gaming, or when we live stream sports. So let's get started with my tutorial on how to create a very simple messaging app that allows you to send and receive messages in real time using WebSockets. So to start off, I built a very simple React front end, which should be very simple for you to understand if you've used React before. And if you haven't, I'll share the code in the description below, and you can follow along. So nothing crazy here. We have a messages array that is being mapped in this box right here. We have a send message function that adds to the messages array whenever we click this send button. So right now, if we write a message and click send, it's just showing up here, which is completely fine. So right now I have two instances of this front end running, one on localhost 5173, one on localhost 5174. As you can see, if I send a message here, it's not showing up on localhost 5174. and vice versa, it's not showing up on the other side. What we want to do now is create some kind of connection between these two that allows one instance to send a message in real time to the other, and vice versa. So what we can use for this again is WebSockets. Particularly, we can use a library called socket.io. On the front end, we have a client-side library. It's called socket.io dash client, I believe. Right there, yeah. And we can make a socket object using this line right here. So this string should be the address of your backend. In my instance, it's going to be on localhost 3000. And we have successfully created a connection to our backend WebSocket server. So now, what we want to do whenever we call the send message function is somehow send that message through to the backend server. To do this, we can use something called a socket event. We can do socket.emit. What emit does is it basically sends an event to somewhere. So if you do it from the client side, it sends it to your backend. We can name the event whatever we want. To make it simple, I'll name it send message, and you can also have a payload where you can add some data you want to send with it as well. So here we'll just send the message text right here. So we're successfully sending a socket event that contains our message. So let's go to the server file now. Here we have a very simple Express backend setup. Right here we're creating a socket.io instance in our backend, and once we have this instance created, we can use the .on function. What .on does is, let's say I have an event called blank. If I want to do something whenever I've received a blank event, I would use .on blank, and then I would have a callback function that does whatever on it. So the first ever event we receive when a user connects to us from the client side right here is the connection event. And we also have a socket object that's connected to it, that's given to it, and we can console.log socket instance connected with ID socket.id. So let's run our server file. So as we can see, we have two socket instances connected. This would be from localhost 5173 and localhost 5174. So we're successfully connected to both of these client instances. Now what we have to do is we have to check for the send message event. So we would do .on once again, and the event will be send message, and we're receiving the message, the actual message text, in a parameter for our callback function. And for now, let's just console log that message. So restart the server file, instances are connected, I write test, this shows up right here. So we're successfully receiving the send message event on our backend, and also the message as well. So we have successfully received the message from the sender. Now what we have to do is send the message to our recipient. So in this case, that would be localhost 5174. To do this, on my Instagram example that I used earlier, you would usually have to use some kind of receiver ID, and the socket connection would find the receiver and send it that way. But since we only have two instances here, we can use something called .broadcast and then emit a different kind of event. We'll call that receive message and send the message once again with that event. What broadcast does is, let's say the socket connection received send message from localhost 5173. Broadcast would send this event, the receive message event, to everyone other than the sender 5173 of the initial event. So here, what broadcast is doing is it's sending the receive message event to everyone other than 5173, which in this case is just 5174. So what we'll do is we will restart the server once again, and the instances are connected successfully, and we'll go to the client-side code. So we said that the receiver is now receiving the message through the receive message socket event. So let's see if that does anything. So I click send, nothing's happening. Why is that? The reason for that is because, as you can see, we're doing an emit for send message, but we're not handling the receive message event. What we can do for that is, once again, the .on function. We can use .on receive message. And I also have a pre-built handle receive message function that takes in message as a parameter and adds it to our messages array with the type of received. So I can just put that message in, or put that function in as a callback. And to be safe, we can also clean up the use effect by using socket.off. You don't have to worry about that much right now. So right now we have a handler for the receive message event that calls this function, and this should work now. We'll see. Let's restart both of the client's instances and also our server. Node server.js. So now, when we write down a message, we click send, the WebSocket connection sends it to the other instance. So this connection goes both ways. Test from localhost 5174. So as you can see, both sides can now send messages to each other in complete real time using our Socket.io library. So to summarize the whole flow, what happens is we write down a message, a socket, and we click send. A socket event called send message is emitted to our backend. The backend receives it and then broadcasts it to everyone other than the sender. Another event called receive message, sending the message as well. And on our client side of the other instance, so if I send it from 5173 on 5174, this event runs because this event is received and this function runs, and our received message is added to our messages array. So this should give you a very simple understanding of how WebSockets exactly work. It can get very complex, obviously, for example, in a game where there's thousands of different moves, different directions you can move. All of those are handled in real time using WebSockets. So this is a very simple explanation of how it works. I will add more links to resources on where you can learn more about socket connections, Socket.io, WebSockets in general, and I really hope you guys enjoyed and learned a lot from this video, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.